Welcome, guys, to another episode of ProView. Thanks for all your support and your encouragement. We like you all to share and uh, subscribe to our channel and help us reach that 1,000 milestone. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is very, very important, guys. Please share all these episodes where we impart lot of knowledge on photography, lot of tips on photography with the help of our guest. And in fact, today's guest, guys, is very, very special guest. He already appeared here, and last time also he did mention about cat, and that's why you would have guessed it.
Yes.
I mean, you can see those beautiful eyes. This is his product. Mr. Mohan Thomas has already did his snow leopard expedition, okay? But I haven't. And like you guys, I have lot of questions in my mind. If I go to snow leopard expedition, how many days should I spend? What are the difficulties over there? And I always keep thinking about all those things, and somehow I'm not able to prepare my trip. And that's why we have requested once again Mr. Sanjit Mangat to appear here and talk about his snow leopard expeditions. Because believe me, guys, if you see his images on snow leopard, they are just jaw-dropping. So with this, let me welcome Mr. Sanjit Mangat, sir, for today's episode. Welcome, sir.
Welcome, Sanjay sir.
Hi, Mr. Mohan. Hi, Amit. How are you?
We are good.
We
We
are
are
with
good.
you guys again.
Yeah. In fact, Sanjit, sir, every year by this time, you spend your time, most of the times in the higher altitudes, right?
I spent maybe 3 months here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of the situations here, we all are sitting and zooming. But Sanjit sir, today you have to help me, not only me, but all the viewers who view and they wanted to plan an expedition to a snow leopard. Because as you know, I mean, I have got a lot of phobia back of my mind. Yaar, kapde kaun se kharidu, what would the temperature kind of stuff. So today, not only the photography part, but you have to help us understand how the snow leopard expedition goes. So
It's my pleasure to be here with you guys.
Let me add to that, Amit. When I decided I'm going for the snow leopard, my doctor friends just advised me not to go. You all know, as I am a senior citizen now. So, as a senior citizen, you should not be going there. I said, I've made up my mind. I'm going there. If I can do it, nobody need to think twice. You all can do it. It is very simple.
yeah.
So you're underestimating yourself. You are
No. But when you say Sanjay sir underestimating, it is because he said senior citizen.
I'll be losing a lot of fans.
No, I think a lot of people need. A lot of people need encouragement, and I'm here to help with that.
Yeah. So without any further delay, Sanjay sir, it's all yours. Please take us through a beautiful expedition into the Himalayas.
Mr. Mohan has already been to a snow leopard expedition, and he knows how hard it is to get great images. Now, the great images is secondary compared to the physical aspect and the mental aspect of this. So I think an insight to how the expedition works is the right topic chosen by Mr. Amit Rane. So let me take you into the snow leopard expedition. We're going to discuss a few things. There is no doubt we all have a fascination for snow leopard. For years, for decades for me, it was impossible for me to go to Ladakh and walk 4 or 5 kilometers in minus 25 degrees, 30 degrees, stay in a tent. And I used to be very upset that, I'm not that physically fit or that young anymore to, go to Ladakh and do this. I went many times in the summer, went to Rumbak, went to Hemis. I just couldn't do it in the winter. So I waited. I thought, there might be a better opportunity when I'm older, or there might be better conservation that might lead to newer sightings. So I waited for this remarkable change in, venue in a way from Ladakh to Spiti. Not that Ladakh is any less, but Spiti has really picked up in the last 4 or 5 years. Why has this happened? All thanks to NCF, to Snow Leopard Conservation Trust. They have worked for 10 to 12 years Last year, Dr. A.G.T. Johnson was with us, and his one of his protege students was Mr. Charu Sharma, who spearheaded this area for 11 years. You can imagine the dedication of the man. 11 years he was in Spiti Valley working on these snow leopards. Now that helped in getting a lot of locals trained to work as spotters and guides. So when the conservation streamlined, the tourism started crawling in. So that really helped us also in knowing the right locations for tracking snow leopards. So all thanks to the conservationists. Why is Spiti level expedition good for photographers? Now, if you look at a lot of the angles that you see in many places, I mean, there are 8 countries with snow leopards. A lot of the angles are very acute or distant. But what happens here is a lot of times you are on the other side of the gorge, which gives enough safety to be comfortable. So they come nearly at 30 to 20, 30 degree up and down. So it really helps in getting good images. And because the gorge generally is about 200 meters, 300 meters, so you are able to get quite a decent distance. Obviously, if they're on your side of the hill, then that's an icing on the cake. But even for composition, 200 meters, 300 meters, it really helps in with the long lens. I'll share some of my favorite snow leopard images. I've been going for 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I went alone, and then I, got all the issues resolved. Slowly, I also improved in the way we were helping people come and use our services at Nature Extreme. So, in a way, we took some time to streamline all the program. There are classic frames. There are people who love their composition. The people who want portraits. People love to come for golden eagle, for bearded vulture. People love red fox because the interaction of red fox is really good between them.
Right.
Then we will talk about how to get there, where to stay midway, how many days you need, what kind of stay you will have, what kind of gear and apparel. Gear is slightly different. Gear is something you can use wherever, like sticks or walking poles or other things that you can keep for other trekking. And apparel, sometimes you need apparel that you will only use one time if you're only coming once, and sometimes you'll buy things that you can repeatedly use. So we'll talk about all that.
Super.
How does this help Spiti Valley? In the winters, most of the people even the people who had farmland, a lot of green peas is grown there. They didn't have much to do, and they couldn't afford going to the lower altitude because they had no place to stay. So they play cards, they'll drink, and median life was like maybe 55, 60, they pass away, maybe 45. So there's a lot of concern about what to do in winter because, led to a lot of alcoholism and, a lot of domestic issues. So now with entire, people come in December as well. December, January, February, March is completely packed with tourists, which, they're making money. So now their habits have changed. So it's really helping the local people. So in a way, tourism is leading to conservation because now they're watching all the snow leopards, they're watching the red fox, they don't want anybody to come harm them. So there's a lot of, conservation effort as well. Forest Department works very well there as well. There's a classic video in the end, a small short video of how an old ibex and an old snow leopard had a fight. We'll share in the end. And I guess I'll move next. So everybody knows about Spiti Valley now. It's, if you go to YouTube, you type in Spiti Valley from summer to winter, just full of adventurers, just full of culture people, tours, just full of off-roaders, bikers. So Spiti Valley has now become quite popular. And luckily, it's not as commercial as Ladakh is at the moment. And with the opening of the Atal Tunnel and the better road from Kaza to Manali, we will see even more tourists coming in. And there is a very good government infrastructure in Lahaul Spiti where they know that they have to be sure about controlling the tourists and not make into a very commercial place. So I'm glad they have some sensible government officials there. Spiti Valley is sandwiched between Ladakh to the west and to the China, Tibet on the east. There are places which are close to the border, which are only 20 kilometers from Spiti Valley, where you can see the village lights on the Chinese border. So it's very close to the China border.
Mhm.
A lot of people, they inquire about if they need an inner line permit. So the inner line permit is only for the foreigners, and the Chinese, they have a tougher time to come to Spiti Valley. They have to get it from Delhi, and it's a 1 month application, and mostly it doesn't get approved. Taiwan and Hong Kong, they can get it done easily.
Mhm.
It could be Chinese descent, but if you have a different passport than China, it's easier for you to, come in through the inner line permit. And inner line permit happens on the second day of travel in a place called Ricompio. It's on the way. It's a 15-minute formality. It doesn't take too much time. We have an agent. We have an agent who helps us with that.
Okay, so no, one doesn't have to apply it well in advance. I mean, he can just arrive at place and he can.
That's it. You don't even need a photocopy of your passport. You just go there, you slip, and then that's it. It's a formality.
Sure.
The distance is about 550 kilometers from Chandigarh. Once you start climbing up, you have to stop midway because on 550 kilometers, like 1,000 plus kilometers of the plains. So you have to stop somewhere. A lot of people stop in Rampur Bushehr. It's an old kingdom of the ex-CM of Himachal. And some people like to stay in Kalpa. It all depends on how your tour operator wants to take you. We have been just staying in Rampur because it's right next to the main road, and 7 a.m. next morning you're packed and you leave. Because every day you have to travel at the right time, because there could be landslide, there can be roadworks, there could be avalanche. So you have to do everything on time. There's no relaxation. And if you relax, a lot of people do relax and want to take pictures on the way, because the same terrain goes all the way. There's no need to take pictures on the way. If you start taking pictures on the way, you get late and it's dark. So the wind picks up at night, and all the small stones on the mountain, they start rolling down the hills on the mountains, because you are above the tree level.
Yes.
So it's all dry. So once they start rolling down, it rolls on bigger rocks, and you don't know what's going to hit you at night. So you have to make sure that wherever you stop, you have to stop before sunset. Or maybe in an hour or so, but not at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night. Nobody advises you to travel at that time of night. It's amazing. Spiti Valley is amazing. It's one of the oldest 3-4 monasteries. Even seeing these monasteries, you are amazed how these people settled there 1,000 years ago and built such huge monasteries. So, I mean, it's overall a complete culture, adventure, photography, endurance trip. Why do we all have a fascination for snow leopard? Always used to be called the grey ghost, and it used to be very difficult to get a good picture of it. Mostly people who got pictures had very professional lenses, or part of a some documentary group that used to get these images. So once Spiti Valley, and as I told you, that the angle improved of taking pictures, we all got excited that this is a place we need to go and try our luck.
Mm-hmm.
It is a remote location, so people become nervous. How they're going to contact their loved ones? What happens if they get injured? What is the closest medical help? There's a lot of questions that people want to know.
Yeah.
So we have an entire list of these questions, all answered, because obviously we've been doing it for some time now, so we get a lot of data. So we compile that into one, 30, 40 point page where most of these questions are answered, and then if the people need to ask more, they just contact our office and we just help them out.
Sure.
So considering that the angle of the photography is great, you can get amazing action sometimes, amazing composition sometimes. So now if this is one of the big cats of India. So once you're done with this, you have covered one of the toughest cats. So it's a great satisfaction for the photographer. I know somebody who has only seen one type of leopard, that is snow leopard, has not seen common leopard. So there are other kind of people also who don't know that how valuable it is to see a snow leopard. Basically, as I mentioned earlier also, this conservation has led to tourism. We must thank the conservationists. All these companies that are mentioned up there, they're all important people who have really put in the effort. So I mean, whenever I meet any one of them, I personally thank them for what all they have done for us. Of course, it has helped us, earn a living as well as the local make a living. So kudos to them. Now, a normal village in winter, when there's a snow blizzard or a snowfall, looks like this. People still walk on these roads. People still go to see a snow leopard. In fact, it's easier after a fresh snowfall to see a snow leopard because you get fresh pug marks in the snow. So it's a lot more easier after. So we are happy when there's a good snowfall because next day it's a bumper sighting.
Okay. So what are the best months, Sanjit sir?
I would say mid-January to end March.
Okay.
See, weather pattern is different. Sometimes it will snow more in Feb and less in March. And sometimes it will snow less in Feb and more in March. So it's your good luck or bad luck how it works out when the snowfall happens. But December and January, what happens is there are layers of snow. So one snowfall every week or 2 weeks. So once the layers of snow goes up, the more layers of snow, then the ibex or the blue sheep, they can't go to the roots to pick out their fodder.
Oh, okay.
So then they start coming down towards the village or lower than the village. So wherever is the prey is the predator. So the predator follows the prey. So we generally, sometimes November has very good snowfall. Then we encourage people to even come in December and January. So it depends a lot. But February, March, 100% are the best months to come.
Right, sir.
Only thing is in February, March, there are more people there. So if you want more exclusive shots, try coming mid-January.
Okay. Why this question is, Sanjit sir? Because I don't plan this kind of trips every year. Maybe it's a once in a lifetime kind of bucket list kind of trip.
Right.
So if I want to plan a trip and I wanted to increase my probability of seeing a snow leopard on the snow, how many minimum days you recommend that I should stay?
So I would say that in Kibber village or in Checha village, you'll have to stay at least 6 nights.
Minimum 6 nights. What
minimum 6 nights? There is always a good sighting in those 6 days. There will either be a very good snowfall again, or there might be something already there by the time you reach.
Right.
But 6 nights are minimum. 2 nights on the way up and 1 night on the way down.
Sure.
So a total 9 days trip should be more than enough.
Sure.
We have been playing
6 to 9 days. Yeah. So just to sum it up, 6 to 9 days is minimum what one should spend, and the best time would be from Jan to say April.
Mid-Jan to 31st of March.
Sure. Thank you.
See, it's anywhere in wildlife. The more time you spend, the better the sightings. All is your luck. But 6 nights are a minimum that we have been doing for the last 5 years. And let me not be arrogant about this, but every single guest, every single group that has come has seen a snow leopard.
Right.
Why is Spiti Valley expedition good for photographers? You take a day and a half to come up from Chandigarh to Kibber. So you are climbing, first day you're climbing only 4,000, next day you're climbing about 10,000, and third day you are at 14,500. So your acclimatization, especially if you are young, happens automatically. Whereas if you go to other places by flight, you have to, stay a day there to acclimatize and go the next day. The good thing about it is that on the second day, once you leave, you might even sight something on the way, a red fox, blue sheep. So there's some sighting happen on the second day as well.
Right.
Late second day. There were people this time, they were getting their diesel filled in their tempo traveler in Kaza, and the 2 snow leopards were sitting right opposite the hill. So, so you can't, you have more, you're not wasting a day just sitting in a hotel. You have a whole day of travel. In the meantime, you're acclimatizing yourself as well. Anybody over 40, I would recommend you to take Diamox, a full course of Diamox. Talk to your physician, carry the Diamox. The only problem you will have is that you might have to stop a couple of times to, have your number 1 stops, but that's okay. You have your lunch break, dinner break, so you will have to stop somewhere. So please take a course on Diamox, consult your physician, and if you have any kind of heart condition, lung condition, please make sure that you tell, even if you're managing it, please make sure you tell your organizer. Because I've had people who will come and say, I used to go to Leh and used to take 3 days of oxygen before I could walk. And I'm looking at the person and thinking, you should have told us. We sent you a performer asking you for all these, medical history. So you're there, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it freezes, so I don't know. So that's one of the issues that need to be discussed with your physician. Diamox, we will provide, oxygen. So even on the site, so even if photographer gets tired, he, needs a little bit of help. So the oxygen cylinder is there on the site, a small oxygen cylinder, and we help them. So in kind of way, the photographer feels confident doing, all the trek and, snow walk and all that.
Right.
As I said, distance to subject, it could be from 70 meters to 400 meters. Yeah, sure, there are 700-meter sightings also sometimes, but then you wait, because generally in the evenings, they always walk.
Okay.
The whole day they might just sit in that 700-meter spot. When they walk, they might even come to 150 meters.
Oh.
And with a long telephoto, I don't think so 150 meters is a big deal at all.
Okay.
So that's, one of the benefits of being in Spiti Valley.
Okay.
Flying shots of avifauna are lovely with the background of blue skies or, white mountains. So this, big raptors really helps, getting different kind of shots. Fauna, you have, we look at ibex, we look at blue sheep, and we're like, they look like goats. But once you get there and you look at the background and the light, and you're like, my God, what beautiful subjects they can. And in the evenings, they're very hospitable people. They will come, they will give you socks, they'll give you all kinds of, barley stuff. There'll be a Devtaji or a godman will come and do prayer for you. So it's full of culture, you feel like you're part of them. They have little, but they're really welcoming. And, a lot of times it happens that it's like a fresh snowfall, so nothing's happening that day. People go out walking, they'll see something new, some interaction between bearded vulture, somewhere lammergeier, something always happening. So, they never bored. There's always something to do. As I told you, scanners and spotters, because of all the, learning they have got from the conservationists, and they all belong to few villages, so they're quite a good brotherhood. So they tell everyone what's happening. So that really helps in sighting. Generally, sightings, if they are on a good day, by 8 o'clock the sighting starts, 8 a.m. and goes on all day till the evening. So because what happens with snow leopard is once it has walked all night to a different location, it will stay there and sleep, because it needs to rest, and the hot sun will help kind of warm it up, and then in the afternoon and evening we'll start walking, and whatever territory marking, stalking, all those things will happen. So these scanners and spotters, they spot them right away if there's fresh snowfall, because there's pug marks, and they have their favorite locations that they send their people to. So the network is awesome there. That really helps in spotting snow leopards in Spiti Valley. Okay, now a lot of places where snow leopard is seen in other parts of the country is that you end up staying in a tent. These are not any thermal tents. These are basic tents.
Right.
I've had friends who have stayed there in like minus 50 at night, and they have frozen to death. They will go and say, we want to stay in a homestay, even if it's full of cow dung, we'll go and stay there because we can't take this cold. I've had people who have left. I'm not saying that tents are bad. I'm just saying that tents are more difficult than having a homestay.
Sure.
Now these homestays are not like any simple homestay. They have, electric heater. They have a wood-fired stove. They have electric blanket, nice big quilts. So your rooms are very warm. You won't feel anything where you feel I need 6 layers of clothes to sleep in here.
Yeah.
Even if the electricity goes, we have a genset there also, which we don't encourage, but because there's always a wood fire stove that helps out.
Right.
So now it is whether you want to use a genset or you want to burn wood. So you just look at the guy what you want to do. So it's a dilemma, but all the services are there.
Yeah. So charging batteries is not an issue, sir, right?
Not at all, because we have a generator, so there's no problem.
Sure.
And it's not a big generator, it's a small generator just to do all the minimal, whatever charging you need to.
Yeah, because typically the batteries, they started behaving at very weirdly at the very cold temperatures. Almost 50% of the capacity they work with, right? So there's a frequent need to charge your batteries and gear and stuff.
So many people will take their, mobile phones and take pictures. And they'll leave it in their outer pocket. And 10 minutes later, they'll take it out, the battery will be like 1%. So you have to be careful in keeping your batteries warm.
Yes.
Road network, there are sometimes avalanches and landslides, or there's some busy road, like road with a road work. There are many options. We have homestays on the way. We can change the plans as need be. But we'll get to there on time. And even if you miss a day, we are keeping in contact that before you even reach the Kibber homestay, if there is sighting, we'll take you there.
Okay.
So at least you don't miss out on anything. So medical services, there's a tertiary hospital in Rampur, there's a community health center in Kaza, which is about 20 kilometers from Kibber, and there's a primary health center in Kibber. But the only reason I'm mentioning this is basic need you will have is either oxygen or Diamox.
Right.
It's available in all three places, in Rampur, in Kaza, and in Kibber. So as long as oxygen is there, in case somebody gets AMS and you have to be taken to a lower altitude, you are safe. So oxygen is never, you never run out of oxygen. There are plans where we can even provide, if there are some high profile or worried people who want a chopper to take them from Kibber to Shimla, we have services that are available as well. That depends on the weather condition, but otherwise chopper can be arranged. There's a medical insurance for chopper also that people can get if they have the pocket for it. Otherwise, it's never happened. We've never had any problems like that.
Right.
I'll talk a little bit about the photography now. So there was a snow blizzard. Generally, third, fourth day, there'll be one blizzard or the other. Many times there's no blizzard. Obviously, that depends. Now, this is end March. This is March 19th. So when people say we will go mid-Jan or mid-Feb because that's a better time, you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
So invest in a very, very good jacket. Now, this jacket, if you want to be a frequent traveler to high altitude areas, then buy an expensive jacket. Right. Otherwise, a lot of jackets now in the 10 to 12,000 rupee range at Decathlon, they work well. If it's a one-time investment, nobody's going to buy a 30, 40,000 rupee jacket. So then again, the pants, the shoes. At the moment, I would say Decathlon has good stuff. Columbia also has good stuff. Be careful with the Columbia shoes because some of the guests we've had who have got these high altitude winter shoes from Columbia, they were getting wet. So be careful, be sure that there's some new shoes available also with Columbia, be sure. But again, if you're going to invest 50,000 on gear like this, you have to be a repeat customer.
Right.
Otherwise, beg, borrow, steal, whatever, just collect your things and just do the 6 days and that's fine. This was I think 2017 winter where we at about 5:45 in the evening, it was minus 20, I think at that time. We were on the top of one of the hills, and for an hour we watched the play between the snow leopard and the ibex.
Oh.
So the snow leopard would run to the ibex to grab it. The ibex would go to the edge of the ridge. Snow leopard was smart enough not to pounce on it because both will fall in the, in the gorge. But this snow leopard is, the one that passed away this season. This snow leopard was insane. You've seen those videos of it jumping and rolling and keep going after the ibex. It's the same snow leopard.
Okay.
But it's not that dumb. It knows that this is too sharp a gorge. I'm not going to go after this. So it kept on happening. In the end, it was so cold that I couldn't even press the shutters. I mean, it was so cold. So we just left after that. In the morning, we were told that the ibex is alive. So I said, that's even better because now we'll get better shots. This was on the Century Asia magazine cover.
Wow.
No.
So I was pleased that they appreciated it. See, sometimes when you see you're looking at the ibex, not realizing there is a snow leopard right next to it also.
Oh, is this top of the frame, right?
Yeah, it's on the top of the left side of the frame. You can
Yeah.
see the tail. So it gets camouflaged really well. So sometimes I think the rocks are a better camo for it than even the snow,
Right.
One time, the snow leopard was with a kill in a gorge. We were able to get a good angle of it. This is one of the most famous snow leopard that's passed away now.
Oh.
See, now it all depends on your compensation. Somebody wants a close shot, somebody wants in a corner, somebody wants one to rule of third. It all depends. I think most important part of this is how good is your dynamic range of your whites. How good are the whites? You look at the canvas and the color of the snow, it's quite similar. So be careful with your color temperature, how blue or how yellow or how gray it is. I think that really tells how good a photographer you are.
Yeah.
Lately, there has been these mesmerizing three cubs with this mother that has enthralled all the photographers for the last year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from what information I know, they are still being seen, but it's patchy information.
Okay.
Well, last year they gave great sighting. You've seen those pictures of four of them cuddled up together,
Mm-hmm.
Same family. This is on March 20th, the day we got information that lockdown is happening. This was the last image I took. And after this, they turned around this mountain and they left and were not seen the whole season.
Oh.
In a way, they also said goodbye to us and we went to our homes. See, this is a far off picture, but just showing you how when it's very windy and how they cuddle up together, just to give you an idea of their behavior. Sometimes they catch a hold of a yak. That's a field day for the photographer because they'll eat, they'll play, they'll bask. So if you get one of these kind of situations, you can enjoy your snow leopard photography. As usual, snow leopards also, they scent mark the different areas. If you feel this is too close or too far, most of my images are with an 800 mm.
Okay.
I don't use a converter because sometimes when the action happens, the converter in the older DSLR makes it slow.
Mm-hmm.
So I generally try to avoid a converter, but 1.4x I sometimes use.
Okay.
Most of the people I would advise should come with at least 400 plus mm telephoto and keep a converter. Have another shorter lens like a 200, 500, 100, 400, 200, 600 for all the flight shots and composition.
Right.
The 24 to 70, sure, you can take some landscape shots, but sometimes you can compose on the bigger lenses because distances are there.
True.
So basically, those three lenses and two bodies is what you need. If you don't have that kind of equipment, there are many rental companies available. You can contact us, contact Amit. Everyone knows these companies. They can help you, get a 12-day rental, which is worth it. Once you get there, you will remember how good decision you have taken. Because the reach has to be there, and you don't want to miss out. Maybe because it's only one-time trip in life,
Right.
So it's a one-time investment.
Sanjit sir, I think tripod also plays a very major role in Spiti Valley, especially snow leopard expeditions.
Very true, because first of all, you need to have a sturdy tripod. The tripod has to be, at least a 4 kilo plus heavy weight. Because what happens is you are trekking down to or going up to this sighting. Right. Whereas your porter will take your tripod and your lens or your camera bag and set it up for you.
Oh, cool.
So he can't set up anything. And once you reach these spots, what will happen is that you yourself are not going to be able to figure out where the snow leopard is. He is going to, maneuver the camera and the auto.
True,
For you,
true.
everything's going to look the same to you.
Yeah.
So my sighting, when I got the snow leopard on the rocks, the porter, he focused it for me. When I lost it, again I had to call him. Where is it? Find it and focus it for me.
A slight touch of your camera and 1 mm change, and you're lost.
Oh.
You have to be very careful. So you need a good tripod head and a good tripod. Again, available with all the rental companies.
Sure.
This is an afternoon shot. You can see with the shadow. Once they bask in the sun, then they stretch. So it all, just different behavior shots. So this is what you generally see. You just see snow and rocks. So you like, where do I look? If the porter doesn't have a tripod, he won't be able to put your, even if it's, let's say you are 200, 500, you are not coming with a long telephoto, right? Then you need a tripod because he's not going to be able to hold it and show you. So you can see on the right middle, a bit to the right, you can see two leopards sitting there.
Right.
This is, as you mentioned, tripod is completely necessary. There are a lot of caves that the snow leopard hides in. Most of these porters, over the period of a decade or so, know most of the caves. So they'll be on the lookout. So sometimes you just see them peeking from a cave. So it's interesting.
Right.
Now comes the pug marks. Now the reason I like this is because it's going reverse to the pug marks.
Oh.
Pug marks are going, there are no pug marks in the back much, but it's following some pug marks. I don't know what it was doing. But this is what the porters look for. They just look for pug marks. The minute they see any pug marks, they will tell you, get ready, something is going to happen.
Wow.
So pug marks is the most important part of the trekking. And fresh snowfall, you get them plowing. It's a wonderful feeling when you.
Beautiful.
It's when you see them in the video, the way it splashes the snow everywhere. It's like you see those people with those snowshoes. Those the rackets. So you feel like that. It's a lovely feeling. Also, this sighting is probably around noon. So around noon, the snow then starts, getting soft. So it becomes more difficult for them to, walk through it.
Okay.
Their pads are, you can see how furry their pads are. If you see other leopards, you see a black part of the lower legs. And you can see fur on the lower part of the legs.
Yes.
So I think that helps them in insulating as well. So here's a picture of a snow leopard basked enough in the snow. Now it's completely relaxed. It's probably had a hard walk through, minus 30 degrees. It became so hot that even we were dehydrated. So I was wondering how this snow leopard with such a big, thick fur is managing in such a dry area. So what it does is, after it marks its territory with its face also, it will go and sit on a piece of snow. I'll show you that later. What I wanted to show you here is look at the terrain. It's just flat, steep, fall.
Right.
You see there's snowfall, there is ice, and look at the grip. It has got hardly any grip.
Oh.
It's amazing how they can manage in small places of hold, holding on to a small little edge out of the rock and just keep going. Because I think if there was a human like this, it would just fall. They hide everywhere. If you see the bottom left, you will see that there's a snow leopard hiding. It's basically a sub-adult.
Right.
And you're wondering why it's hiding. And next thing we know, there's an ibex at the bottom. So basically, I'm the ibex. So the snow leopards were young. And we were hoping that there'll be a stalking and kill, and we'll get all kinds of awesome shots. But being some adults, they were not still that confident. So we just chilled in the cold and went back and got warm. That's all. Again, some cub shots, just playing in the sun. Just to show you that, sometimes it's all rocky, not that much snow.
Yeah. The one which is sitting on top right, I couldn't even spotted him at first.
Yeah, that's where you need a tripod.
Ah,
They were all those three. They were bundled up together. You could looks like maybe one or two, but the three of them all bundled up. So different behaviors you get to see of snow leopards. Again, just jumping and playing those three cubs, very famous three cubs.
hmm.
Now, if you look, you might look on the top that there's an ibex and there's a blue sheep, and they're just, standing there.
Right.
Right dead center, the same
Yeah.
shot I showed you that it was kind of, slipping on the black ice and the snow is climbing up slowly to get to them.
Oh, so you got all three in one frame.
Yeah, so when you look at yourself, then you're looking at the ibex, and then that guy will tap on your shoulder, sir, the snow leopard is also there. So, you think you are skilled enough after, all those decades of photography, but still, new place, new way of thinking.
True.
So again, I told you that snow leopard was, sitting upside down and basking.
Mhm.
And it jumped down and sat on this block of ice to cool its chest.
Oh, okay.
So as they say, hot and cold. So I don't know how they do it. So it sat for a while on this.
Mhm.
There's another one that sat for a while on a whole heap of snow. I think they eat the snow also, so kind of, I don't think even with that thick fur they get dehydrated.
Okay.
This was another famous sighting we had. This is one of the famous old ibex
Yes.
from Kibber village. A lot of people have taken good images of this ibex. One day this ibex was seen strolling near the Key Monastery. And next thing we know, we got a call from Key Monastery that there's a snow leopard that is having a stalking with the ibex.
Okay.
But this snow leopard is also quite old. It's I think 10-year plus snow leopard. So now you have an old snow leopard and an old ibex. So we were wondering what's going to happen because the ibex is actually 3 times bigger than the snow leopard.
Hmm.
So it went to the water because didn't expect it to come to the water, the snow leopard. Because it's freezing -degree water. You don't expect the snow leopard to go in there. And it went and grabbed it by its nose, not even the throat, because that leopards do that. They grab the prey by the nose to suffocate if the neck is too big for them to grab. So
Right.
he grabbed it by the nose and dragged it. There's a video for it. Next slide. And next thing we know, by the time we got from the village to the spot, it had already opened up the part because it's very smart. It knows in this freezing water, this ibex will freeze. And once it freezes, it can't have the meat. Unfortunately, that day there were quite a few photographers and a film team. So it was a little shy. So he ate a bit and then went away. But it was a good sighting. It was about 200 meters in a gorge. So we all were sitting at the edge of the gorge looking down. And we were all looking that this is a place where you can call it a suicide point. We had, few Americans with us, they're all 75 plus,
Mhm.
and they were getting dizzy looking at this.
Yeah. In fact, there is one more thing as a key accessory when you work with a snow, sir. That is the goggles or a good pair of shades, right?
Yeah, you need to have which are polarized because normal goggles will not help you with the glare. So
Okay.
you really get a UV coated polarized sunglasses.
Okay.
Photochromatic helps, but even with photochromatic, what happens is that there's still enough light coming at you. It
Right.
it doesn't make it completely dark, it'll just make it nice.
Right.
That doesn't work. You need to have UV coated polarized sunglasses. I'll mention all the different apparel later also. So when people come, they ask for portrait shots, composition, habitat, behavior, interaction with the fauna. And some people like to have snow leopard with the village in the background. stalking, mating, cuffs, all kinds of demands are there. So we try to cover as much as we can according to that peak sighting. So a lot of people get decent, at least not all checklists, at least 3-4 out of these checklists, which is good enough. Sometimes you like, somebody says, I want it close, somebody wants to say like lines and portrait. It all depends on what you feel is your, choice of taste. There are other fauna which I am very fond of is a red fox. Red fox also gives very good images. The bearded vulture also, sometimes when you are just sitting and the snow leopard is sleeping, you will see this thing flying very close to you, not even sometimes 20 meters above your head. So this is a 100-400 shot. So that is where the smaller lens comes into use.
Yes.
Because you don't really want the vulture, you want a bit of the background as well. And it's not easy when you're sitting in snow picking up a 500, 600 and trying to aim. Because the snow is all shaky.
Right.
So different shots depending on what you like. Sometimes I've had many ibex shots, but then I like this evening shot. Sometimes you look up and you see them in the clouds, which is like mist coming out. There's a bit of mist, so I just thought he's looking from the clouds.
Wow.
A lot of places are from where this is right in the afternoon when the snow is about to melt, so there's a little bit of water, droplets everywhere. You can see this has been in some kind of a fight. So the big problem with red fox is that the downside is with tourism, there is obviously more garbage, so it has to be taken care of. We always try to help them. What happens in the population of the stray dogs, which Dr. A.G.T. Singh correctly saying that they are free-ranging dogs, but anyway, stray dogs, they are very territorial as well. So they are pushing out these red fox, so it's become very difficult for red fox to come to the village.
Right.
Period. The point is, why do even they need to come to the village? Because again, it's garbage. So the garbage needs to be managed. So these stray dogs can be handled.
Right.
So the red fox population is good. Again, close shot, you can get a good shot. Fighting you can get because generally they have this mating thing, so the males fight with themselves. This is one of my favorite birds that everyone photographs. It's a common bird to photograph in February, March. Now they call it wide-winged redstart, but I like the German golden-starred redstart to say. It just feels good to say that German word. So it gives a lot of, the male-female pair. So a lot of people have lots of different shots of this.
Right.
I just thought I'd put a male and female together. Again, composition, how you like it. Some people like it, these horns coming out of the bridge.
Beautiful.
Again, they walk right in front of you. You will see a lot of blue sheep. A lot of blue sheep. And the more blue sheep you see, the more encouraged you are because more chance to see a snow leopard.
Wow.
They're insane. They jump like, this is 90 degrees, they'll fall. Nothing happens to them. It's a pleasure watching them. Okay, now we'll talk a bit of how, what you need to do to get there, what you need to buy for apparel gear. So for, generally you take 2 days to get there. One, you land in Chandigarh. Then next day, you drive the same day, about 8 hours to a place called Rampur Bushehr.
Yes.
So you will get there around 6-7 o'clock. You have a whole evening to rest, to recharge, charge your batteries, fix your memory cards, meet your other, guests, have a nice, hearty, good meal, great meal, good food. Mohan sir can vouch on the meals there at Rampur Bushehr.
Yes.
So then that kind of the first day you reach this about at 3,500 to 4,000 feet. So it's easy. It's not that cold. It's good. It helps in mentally getting ready for the higher altitude.
Right.
So then what you do is next day you go to a place called Tabo. Tabo is a homestay, it's a very large, big homestay. That is at 10,500 feet.
Okay.
But the homestay, again, large rooms, and people who have been to Leh Ladakh know how those rooms are. Large, it's a family room, you all sit together, very nicely furnished. Good food, try the local stuff only if you have the tummy for it. If you have some issues, let us know before that so that we have those things ready if possible. People have gluten issues, people have sugar issues, so we need to know all those things before. Then that's first 2 days. Now the third day morning by 7:30, you will get ready, have breakfast, and go off to Kibber, which is only about 20 kilometers from Tabo. Sorry, it is about 2 hours 20 minutes because you're going to go to Kaza first as well. So once you leave Tabo to Kaza to Kibber, there can be wildlife anytime. There could be blue sheep, there could be ibex, there could be red fox, even a snow leopard. So once you are leaving Tabo, you have to make sure you take out your tripod and your long lens with you.
Right.
Because what happens to a lot of people is there'll be a sighting and their stuff will be on top of the traveler.
Right.
So now you have to run and get that stuff out of that. The porter will do it for you, but I mean, how long? How do you make sure that it'll stay there for next 20 minutes? So make sure you keep one lens, even if it's not a long lens, if it's 100, 400, keep one lens ready with you after you leave Tabo.
Oh.
In fact, what happens sometimes is once you leave Kaza to Kibber, that 20 kilometers up, so there is sometimes sighting within 10 kilometers.
Wow.
Again, if your items are lying on top or not accessible,
Mm-hmm.
then again you're going to have a problem getting to those items, and everybody else is shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to tell the people not to do. Some people are complacent, but mostly understand this.
Right.
Sometimes during these 2 days of going up to Kibber, what happens is there's a landslide or a avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have to stay another day on the way.
Right.
See, your days cannot be changed. Then you might stay 5 days in Kibber. You can't go, okay, I'll stay another day because those homestays are used by other people as well.
True.
You leave, the next group comes in. So we try to adjust, we work harder that you get a better sighting than those remaining days. Generally, it works out. There's people who have been delayed by a day on the way because of some kind of hitch. And trust me, they also got great sightings. We have a friend, Mr. Prakash Ramakrishnan, members of knows him. They got snowed in for 3 days and they had the best sightings on those 3 days.
Oh.
So don't be discouraged. These things happen. Go with an open mind. 6 days in Kibber will be ample. And if you have an issue, be ready that you will have to change your plans.
True.
But this is nature. There's nothing you can do.
True.
So what generally people do is they will come on a Saturday and get back on a Sunday. So kind of 9 days, 10 days. So easy for people, especially with salary jobs, to get the whole weekend. The homestays are excellent. Their food is North Indian. The food is Chinese. The food is local. There have been people like we have Japanese people who bring their own little pouches. So now even within India, for any South Indian or North Indian dish, you can even carry your own boxes. Like you just put in water and make if you are not happy with the food.
Right.
If you are a little finicky about food, make sure you carry some of those boxes. The main issue will be those 6 days only, not other places.
True.
But that's your own choice. I mean, personal choice. Now about the photography gear, again the advice is whether you own it or rent it, get the longest telephoto lens you can get. It is not because the snow leopard is far, it's just that you want to get a crisp picture.
Right.
So make sure you have a pro body or especially a high megapixel body, because if you need to do cropping, be sure of that as well. Rent these things are not that expensive if you're coming once in a lifetime.
True.
Many people are prepared for a whole year to come on this trip because they know this is the budget. So they need to, work it out in installments. There are people who help you in that. As you said, sturdy tripod, some fluid motion, some kind of tripod head that, you can go in any plane and you don't, lose the sighting.
Right.
So the minute you lose the sighting, even if the porter helps you or the spotter helps you, it'll take you a couple of seconds, and that time whatever action has happened.
Yeah.
So you want to have a really good tripod head and a really good, with new high frames per second, Sonys and Canons and Nikons, you can go handheld and shoot everything.
Hmm.
But how are you going to spot it?
True. True.
So spotting is a major issue.
True.
So that's why you need the tripod. Again, as mentioned, shorter zoom lens, body for flight shots and composition. Okay, now about apparel, we have a whole list for our Nature Extreme site where we'll give you an entire list from you need a beanie to a thick balaclava to jacket to a middle layer to a thermal layer to a snow pants to a second layer, what kind of socks to wear, what kind of shoes to wear, what kind of gloves to wear. Now, half of these gloves don't even work in the winter because they don't have the right, the hole for the finger, or they're too thick, or they're too thin. So all those things will be mentioned once you contact us, because generally not everybody needs everything. They'll ask us, okay, this is what we have, what can we do with this? Then we'll tell them, okay, this will work fine. This you need to invest in.
Right.
So all those things are mentioned. What some people do is they'll get 2 monkey caps, like hot ones. So you have to be very careful there as well. If you wear too many clothes and you're hiking even up to, let's say, 200 meters, you're going to start sweating. So when you start sweating, when you reach the sighting, you're sitting there whole day. So when the sweat makes your inner layer wet and the breeze is going from one side to the other, you're going to catch a cold or you're going to be chilling all the way. So you have to be very careful how much to wear. So what we do is you carry an extra backpack and you put 1 layer in that. So as you go up, you don't need that layer, and as soon as you get there, you wear the extra layer. Otherwise, you'll have a problem. The other thing is that don't be brave that I can do it myself. I can climb. Take help of the porters. You are paid for the porter. He is there for you. You need an extra porter. It's not a lot of money. Invest in the second porter. Let him carry. He will carry your bag and he'll help you walk also. So I had people who in the middle of the walk will collapse and say, we need more oxygen.
Right.
We don't know what to do. So let's not get into those problems. Let's not act brave. Be practical. I don't practice as a doctor anymore, but I have enough medical knowledge that when I meet somebody, I can tell whether this person is going to be able to make it or not.
Right.
The people have surprised me also. I would say refrain from extensive smoking and drinking. A lot of our friends also will go there and they're so happy to be there that they will start enjoying the evening. The first evening, later on, after the 4th or 5th day, you're accustomed to their altitude.
Right.
But then it's time to come back. So then you don't feel much. But initially, when you go, try not to smoke or drink so much because you will dehydrate from drinking. You will, from smoking, next day you might have to walk 3 kilometers. We don't know.
Wow.
So let's keep that at a very minimal level if you can avoid it. Generally, in 6 days, you lose 2 kgs.
Right.
So how does all this? I also have a commercial aspect to it, but I also feel like am I doing something for this area? What is my input? What is all these tour operators taking all these people? What is their input? First of all, as I told earlier, a lot of people without land are basically day wage workers.
Right.
They work on other people's lands. They work on construction. They work on the road. Now in winter, they have no jobs. So they just sit around because they can afford to go to Shimla or to Chandigarh and stay there in summer. In fact, they can't even bear the heat. For them, that even the winter we have is hot. So they end up staying back there, but they got nothing to do. So they really, become useless. So this has really helped them. Making 10, 20,000 in a season for them is a lot of money.
Sure.
They get tips. They're proud. Earlier, I remember I used to go in the summer. They used to show me snow leopard claws. You would not dare see anything like that anymore, because nobody will ever poach anything like this. So a lot of local community has been helped by tourism. Even there is a local village Pradhan who comes and takes a donation from every tour. The forest department charges a very minimum, but charges for the camera.
Right.
So everyone gets little bit of something. And then they use this money when the locals have a problem going to, any medical problem or any issue. then they use that money for that. So I asked them, what do you use the money for? So generally for medical reasons, because these people can't afford, a lakh or two rupees of medical treatment. So all this money helps them. What do these spotters and scanners do? You can imagine how many people can forest department, how many guards can they also deploy in this area? Rough terrain, huge areas. So all the information from the spotters and scanners basically goes to the forest department also. So I mean, in a way, we are helping the forest department also to keep track of the animals there. Now, our biggest problem there right now is garbage. So now we need to work with the locals. How what they're some of them used to burn. So we have told them not to burn. You take it to the lower dumping ground in Kaza. And if you need money for the truck to come take it, we will help you with it. So we're working on that. Let's see what response we get. This year we don't know anything because obviously we're out of contact. So there's some input we keep giving because we don't want to be overwhelming, overguarding. It's their land.
Right.
We're just guests. So, but I feel happy when their income, their lifestyle, their sense of pride is getting better. This is that video I was telling you about. I'll skip this video, Amit.
No, let it run, sir.
So this is the video I was telling you about. Basically, the ibex was in the water and the snow leopard just grabbed it by its mouth and won't let go of it. Now the ibex is also smart. It is trying to drown the snow leopard in the water. So, but it won't let go. See, it's trying to drown. Now it will flip because it's basically drowning. Now look at without the fur being, as the fur is wet, look at the difference in the size. 3 times the size.
Yeah.
But I think this ibex just, I mean, considering it's 3 times the size, I think it was just too old to leave it. So it was a sighting, we never expected this to happen. Grabbing it from the nose and just hanging onto it. And in the end, there's a little ruffle and next thing you know, it's just sitting on top of it.
In fact, one of the rarest natural history moments that you could be able to capture on a video. I mean, that itself is like a dream sighting kind of thing.
Yeah, not only when we were grabbing this, I was holding on to the porter. There's a suicide point.
Yeah.
One little slip and I would be fodder for the snow leopard also. So that's about what all we do. Our company Nature Extreme has been running this for the last 4 years. We have had people from America, Japan, India, Malaysia, all kinds of people. So I would just say that it's 100% sighting. Very, very rare chance might have happened with some other companies or other people, but we've had a success.
Okay.
So thank you very much for listening to me.
In fact, thank you so much, Sanjit sir. I had a lot of phobia and a lot of preconceived notion about, whether I'll be able to survive there, what should I wear. Thank you for throwing light on that. And actually, you have motivated me to travel to Kibber with Natex, probably 2022, March,
Yes,
April.
I'll be there. Your work will, enlighten a lot of people when you get back. You have a whole different angle for everything.
Yeah, in fact, Sanjit sir, to be very frank, I'll tell you, I was actually talking to Jayant Sharma also about this when I had an interview with him. Snow leopard is one part, other mammals, fauna is second part. I'm a landscape guy. Believe me, those 2 or 3 shots of yours with a snow leopard, I wanted to capture that. Probably I'll have an extended trip of next week just to, I keep capturing escapes and traveling. So amazing session, sir. Thank you so much for throwing light.
We had an Austrian 2 guys. They were, morning they used to come, evening they used to come back. They never used to come back. Whole day, 3 cameras, 1 for landscape, 1 for flight, 1 for long. On their own they would go. He said, we don't need any guidance. We have our own concepts. So you could do something like that.
Oh, definitely.
You get lost, it's okay. We'll give you a satellite phone.
No, but this is what I've been hearing, Sanjit sir. In fact, last year I asked Dr. Caesar also, to channel those trips with Natex and with you, because then you're very, very professional in operating this thing. And I'm actually looking forward for 2022 trips with you, sir.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for joining and this valuable inputs. I think many will get motivated to go to Khyber to see the snow leopard.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, and guys, for those who are watching, I'm going to share all the links of Dr. Sanjit Mangat, Natex, their workshops in the description. So just please go through it. And again, once again, the request: please don't share. Forget to share this videos with all your friends and those who wanted to have that bucket list tick mark of snow leopard. Mr. Sanjit Mangat and the team Natex is the best team to go with. So with this, thank you so much, Doc, and
thank you,
see you soon.
kind words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, once.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.